getting right into the meat and potatoes of this, or actually I guess the meat and avocado, really strong link between utilizing a ketogenic diet along with Ozempic to reduce the muscle loss and some of the drawbacks of using something like Ozempic. Now, this is not me condoning the use of Ozempic. I actually don't have a dog in the fight whatsoever. You may be surprised to find out that, I think that it has a place. I'm not opposed to it. I feel like it could be a big help, but the problem is that the drawbacks are so strong. So we need to look at the things like the muscle loss and the overall basal metabolic rate. So jumping right into probably the most important thing, we can talk about how utilizing keto while you're using something like a GLP-1 receptor agonist can prevent the muscle loss. It's quite fascinating. Hey, if you don't mind, drop a comment down below for the algorithm. It really does help things out a ton in terms of getting these videos out to the right people, and hit that subscribe button. So I want to talk about a study that was published in the journal Nutrition and Metabolism. This particular study was highlighting how reducing carbohydrates ends up preserving muscle mass through adrenergic stimulation. So essentially, it's acting as a little bit of a shock to the system, where this shock by reducing carbohydrates actually encourages this almost adrenaline-like response to preserve muscle, almost like a survival standpoint. So we've talked about from a fasting perspective before, how when subjects intermittent fast or go long periods of time without food, they have strange muscle preservation that occurs because the body kind of says, oh, well, as long as this body's being used, we'll preserve the muscle and actually do what we can to preserve it. It's kind of interesting. But on a ketogenic diet, you're at least adding in more protein and you're not having to fast. Because remember, what happens is you're going to eat significantly less. So if we can just have these shifts occur to where your body actually prioritizes the use of fat, then it's not going to be so prone to breaking down muscle because you've already preconditioned the body to utilize fats. But we have to remember that having ketones in the first place, beta-hydroxybutyrate, is very muscle sparing. So why are people not talking about combining keto with a GLP-1? Well, it's probably simply because of the mindset. People go on a GLP-1 because it is generally easier. Now, maybe they've struggled before and they've tried all kinds of diets and they don't want to do another fad diet. But this is where we have to look at the science. There is a significant increase in growth hormone, which is very muscle sparing. There is a significant increase in obviously ketone bodies. And there's a significant increase in straight up protein intake. This, when you are in a calorie deprived state, is your saving grace to preserve muscle. So hugely beneficial here. Like, we have promised that you could actually co-administer these kind of things together, a lifestyle and a potential pharmaceutical, and have a very solid outcome. Now, I would prefer that you do it without the Ozempic, of course, but sometimes that's just not the way the world works, and I don't always get what I want. Another thing that's really important that people do not do is you're gonna lose energy. You're not gonna want to work out. And resistance training is obviously really important. Really important. Dr. Don Layman talks about, like, the pioneer of leucine research. Stimulus is the number one thing. 60 to 70% of muscle preservation is the actual stimulus itself. You gotta work out, and you gotta work out with some intensity. This is where making sure, if you're utilizing something like a GLP-1, take creatine. People freak out because I don't want to retain water. Even if you retain 5 pounds of water, but you've lost 20 pounds of fat and you preserve your muscle, trust me, the net gain, the net positive, the sustainability, the true long-winded answer that we want is going to be good. I put a link down below for 30% off your entire first order with Thrive Market. Thrive Market focuses on the ingredient quality. That's why getting 30% off your first order with them is awesome. If you go to the grocery store, the reality is you have to spend a lot of time and you need a practical PhD to really read the ingredients, to really understand and cross-referencing. Thrive Market does that already. They do not have garbage ingredients coming into the food that they have on their digital shelves, so to speak. So the reason that I trust Thrive Market is because I know that even if I'm getting something that's like a sweet treat or something that I want to enjoy that's even a snack, at least I don't have to worry about having low quality ingredients. And you can sort by different diet type. I spent a lot of time in Europe recently and I was just almost in love with the food quality there. And the thing that I like about Thrive is they do a good job of emulating the kind of food quality that's coming into the foods that they have. So that link down below gets you 30% off. It gets delivered right to your doorstep and you get a free $60 gift with any purchase. So go ahead and check them out. It's in the top line of the description underneath this video. Now let's talk about this total obvious thing. Okay, this obvious thing is that we eliminate the carbohydrate macronutrient altogether. When people do Ozempic, they don't want to eat fats and protein. They especially don't want to eat fats. And you talk to these people and they just nibble on some carbs. So they eat like birds and they don't get enough protein and they just eat a bunch of carbs. So of course when you come off of it, you're going to have a problem. By simply eliminating that macronutrient altogether, you condition the person to just not have those carbs. It's that simple. It's just out of sight, out of mind, so you're going to lean into protein. And most people on Ozempic don't want to eat fat. So you end up eating more protein and a little bit of fat. So yeah, you end up in kind of a high protein, low fat, possibly a lower calorie state, maybe, but I'm still inclined to think, and again, probably dozens of people that I know that are using Ozempic with keto, they actually eat more than the people that have access to just eating carbohydrates and processed food whenever they want. I would rather you develop a good habit, because even if you eat less calories than someone else that is eating carbs, but you're getting double the protein, you will fare better. You will fare better because you will preserve the muscle. And we have seen this in the literature with super low calorie diets and high protein. 800 calorie a day diets with high protein, preserved, and even built muscle. It's not about that. So if you eat less than Bob, and Bob is eating carbs but eating 1,000 calories, and you're eating protein and eating 800 calories, you will probably end up better. So that's why psychologically, even though it may be weird at first, keeping the carbs out, it works synergistically quite well. Then we look at a study that was published in Exercise and Sports Science Reviews. This found that there was a metabolic flexibility shift that occurs in a low carb state. So if you're just reducing calories, yes, you have all kinds of metabolic benefits that occur. You lose weight, all kinds of inflammatory effects, anti-inflammatory effects rather, huge benefit. The bigger thing is though, when you are combining this with lower carb, you actually have changes in the cellular dynamics at a DNA gene expression level. So the cells become more efficient and have a desire, an affinity for fats. What does that mean though? When it has an affinity for fats, it's less likely to break down muscle and protein into carbohydrates. It's going to break down the fat and use that fat as fuel because it now has an affinity for it. It wants to. So now the protein that would normally go through gluconeogenesis and turn into glucose to fuel you when you are starving is not as much of a problem. And then when you come off, you're metabolically flexible and you have a better chance of retaining the metabolic benefit of the actual compound itself. Because if we look at the literature in the Journal Endocrine Society, 1,961 person study, we saw that after 68 weeks up to 120 weeks when they came off the compound, 50 weeks later, over the course of a year, they lost all the benefit from the cardiometabolic piece. They didn't regain all the weight, but they lost the metabolic benefit because they didn't have the cellular adaptation. I'm telling you, this can help you with that adaptation. And then when you come off, as I've talked about in other videos, the ketogenic diet can help you transition better to get more calories in a concentrated way with protein and fat, making it so that you're not going to regain as much fat. Okay, it's going to make it so that you can maintain appetite suppression, but get caloric density with nutrient density. The last tip that I'll give is don't be shy about a multivitamin, no matter what you're doing. Okay, keto, yeah, you might benefit from a multivitamin in the first place. Ozempic, you might benefit from a multivitamin. But if you're doing keto and Ozempic, you're eating very little and you're only eating protein and fat, it's worth getting a multivitamin in for the micronutrients, period. Everything you're doing is a little bit obscure and somewhat unnatural. So it's not a big deal to add a multivitamin in. I recommend one like Mitochondrial or Bowmar Nutrition has a really good comprehensive one as well. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. See you tomorrow.